Namaste, Pranam, Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Mrtavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam-anusandadhami Bhagavad-gite Bhavadveshinim. O Bhagavad Gita, with which Lord Narayana himself gave enlightenment to Arjuna, the ancient sage Vyasa included it in the Mahabharata. O goddess, showerer of the nectar-like knowledge of non-dualism contained in your 18 chapters, O my affectionate mother, the destroyer of rebirth, I meditate upon thee. Krishna Vandana. Vasudeva sutam devam kansachanura mardanam devaki paramanandam Krishnam vande jagadgurum. Son of Vasudeva, the slayer of Kansa and Chanur, extreme delight for Mother Devaki, O Lord Krishna, the supreme teacher of the universe, my salutations to you. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 18th Adhyay of Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. And Sri Krishna he has just now started the little bit of introduction on the three types of happiness that we are striving after. Sri Krishna says this happiness, after explaining to us the threefold, jnana, based on which we start doing the karma, which again is threefold. And who is doing the karma? The karta, we, the doers. We are performing, we are doing all those activities, we are engaged in all those assignments, karma, which again is of three types, governed by the three gunas of this prakriti, the sattva, rajas, tamas. And having explained about the jnana, karma and karta, then what makes us do these works? The buddhi, the real intellect, the power of discernment, what to do right, what not to do, what is right, what is wrong, what is ethical, what is unethical, what is moral, what is immoral, what is good, what is not good. That power of discernment, that power of discrimination, that power of deciding what is right, what is wrong, that buddhi, that makes us take up the activities. But unfortunately, we don't pay heed to that buddhi. And Sri Krishna had told us that even this buddhi is of three types. And then the most important thing, the fixity of our mind. How is our steadfastness? How firm is our mind? That also determines our way of performing the activities. And Sri Krishna had told us that the firmness of mind is also of three types, the sattvik, rajasic and tamasic. Now all these three gunas, they they control the entire happening in this universe. And Sri Krishna says that all these activities we get into, people get into, all the karma that they start doing is with some motive. And what is that motive? That motive is we are looking for happiness. All of us, each and every being in this universe is seeking that happiness which is going to bring delight, which is going to bring bliss for us. But what happens? How steady is that happiness? How long lasting is that happiness? What is the importance of that happiness? Now Sri Krishna says even that happiness is of three types. Like he told us in the last verse that we read, 36th words. Sukhaṁ tvidanim trividham shrunu me bharatarshava abhyasad bhramate yatra dukkhantam cha nigacchati. Now Sri Krishna is telling the best among the clan of Bharata. Arjuna, Sri Krishna is telling that Sukhaṁ tvidanim trividham shrunu me. Now hear from me. This happiness, this sukha that you all are striving after, This sukha is also of three types. And now hear from me, O chief of the Bharatas, the three kinds of happiness, the three types of happiness. That happiness that each and every being is chasing. We are all chasing that happiness. We all want to be happy. That happiness in which a man comes to rejoice by long practice. Sri Krishna says that happiness doesn't come just like that. As if you want to be happy and you are happy. No. You need tremendous practice. You need tremendous abhyasa yoga for that matter. Abhyasat ramate yatra. Abhyasat ramate. That rejoicing, that happiness which only comes after tremendous constant practice. A practice for a day or two, a practice for a few hours won't bring that happiness which is everlasting. Momentary happiness we may. But Sri Krishna says to attain that everlasting happiness, one has to practice a lot. Without that, constant practice, the persevering practice, without that, and the patient practice also. Not that I've started doing it, I'm happy. You have to be patient. One has to be persevering and adept in constantly practicing those activities which are going to bring happiness, which again is of three types that Sri Krishna told us. And then that is the happiness in which is the end of all sorrows. Yatra dukkhantam cha nigacchati. That happiness ends up at a state where all sorrow, all misery, all unhappiness, all pain just vanishes. So that happiness now, Sri Krishna is going to tell us how that happiness is also of the three types. The everlasting happiness for a very few, a momentary happiness for a few, and no happiness at all for some of the beings. That classification, that differentiation that Sri Krishna is going to explain to us in the next three verses. So let us take up today's reading of the 37th verse, where Sri Krishna is going to tell us what is the Sattvika happiness. Yatad-agre viṣamiva pariṇāme mṛtopamam tat sukhaṁ sāttvikaṁ proktam ātma-buddhi-prasāda-jam. So this is the Sattvika type of happiness, which initially is like poison. Initially it is very unpleasant. Initially it is very scary. It is absolutely puts us in the moments of unhappiness, unpleasantness. Yat tat agre viṣam iva. Its start point. The happiness whose start point, agre is the starting point for that matter. That is the meaning of agra. The happiness whose starting point is like viṣam, is just like poison, highly unacceptable, unwanted, unpleasant, which is not at all acceptable to us. It is so very poison-like. It is not to our liking at all. Yat tat agre viṣam iva pariṇāme amṛtopamam. But in the end, initially we feel it is poison. Initially we absolutely hate it, dislike it. Oh, it is such a bitter medicine. But towards the end, it is like amrita. Towards the end, it is like nectar. Towards the end, it is that wonderful kind of ambrosiacal nectar, which revives us and which just transforms us, which transforms our miseries and pains and sorrows and that poison, like that feelings that we are drinking poison. It is so bitter, it is so dislikeful. that feeling just gets transformed and brings us that moment of happiness, which is as if we have drunk a glass of nectar. We are becoming immortal. We are getting transformed from that painful, miserable, and sorrowful mortality. After taking this poison, after taking this ambrosia, after taking this nectar, we have just transformed ourselves into the immortal beings. That is the kind of feeling that aspirants they get with this Sattvika Sukha. Yattat the grey viṣam. To start with, it is absolutely bad, pathetic. No one will like it. The first initial outcomes of whatever we are doing, whatever happiness we are sort of experiencing, our entire intention is to become happy. But initially, if we get some kind of unpleasant experiences, initially, if we are not at all happy, initially we are in stressful mode. We keep on getting unhappiness as if we are drinking a poison. That is what the start point of that happiness is. But Sri Krishna says that happiness, which towards the end, it works miracles like a nectar. Tat sukhaṁ sāttvikaṁ proktam ātma-buddhi-prasāda-jam. That sukha, that happiness, initially we may not like it at all. The outcome, initial outcome may not be to our liking. It may be totally displeasing for us. But towards the end, it is a happiness bountiful, as if we have drunk a glass of nectar, we have drunk a glass of amrita. And Sri Krishna says, Tat sukhaṁ sāttvikaṁ proktam. That happiness is declared as the Sattvika happiness, which results in ātma-buddhi-prasāda-jam, which is born of purity of one's own mind due to ātma-buddhi-prasāda-jam. Because of the self-realization, I have realized that who I am. I found that answer, and that happiness, Sri Krishna says, when ultimately one gets that answer to that mind-boggling question which has haunted us from time immemorial, through all those births that we have undergone, this question has constantly bothered us. Who am I? And the quest for that answer can only come when we get the realization that, oh, I am part of that. And I am part of that Satchidananda. I have to go back to that Satchidananda. I have to go back to that Parabrahman. I have to go back to that Paramatman. When that kind of realization happens, the kind of happiness we get. But it doesn't come just like that, Sri Krishna says. First of all, one has to practice a lot. One has to undergo that Abhyasa Yoga. And then, after so many births and births and births, finally that moment of realization dawns in our mind, in our intellect, and we get that happiness. Initially, it is very painful. The process to start with is extremely painful. Like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, this path of spirituality is like the path walking on the edge of a razor, so sharp. You fall and you get cut into pieces. And in fact, the ego gets cut into pieces walking on this sharp edge of the sword, sharp edge of the spiritual practices. It is highly painful to start with. Like Sri Krishna says, agre viṣam eva. That the starting point is highly unpleasant. But towards the end, what happens when one drinks a glass of nectar? It is all immortality. It is all blissful immortality, filled with bliss, filled with happiness, filled with joy. There is no other emotion, there is no other feeling for that matter in the mind after getting that realization. That is what Sri Krishna says. That is the Sattvika Sukha. That is the Sattvika happiness. To a beginner, swimming seems as dreadful as death. Now, a person who doesn't know swimming, you just put that person into a pond or a well. There is struggle, struggle, struggle. The person will feel, I'm going to die. Comes out and starts shivering. Oh my God, you were going to make me drown? No, man, I was trying to teach you swimming. Oh, no, 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 I'm not going to do it. That is such a moment of unpleasantness that is born in the mind when one doesn't know swimming and one falls in water. But you start learning the swimming. Practice, practice, practice. You start learning the swimming, and then you are in the most elated, joyful state when you cross that the boundary, the swimming pool from one corner to another. What a delight you get. That is what happens. Sri Krishna is saying here that initially the experiences may be extremely bitter, maybe extremely painful, maybe extremely dreadful. But towards the end, as one starts, one learns swimming, it is just a joy to cross over the boundary of that swimming pool from one end to another. Like cycling, where when we start learning cycling, is it a pleasurable experience? How many times we fall down? How many times the knees get hurt? There is the wounds and the bleeding, and maybe for weeks we are not able to walk properly. But still we don't give up the practice of learning the bicycle. We always are at our fullest efforts in learning that balancing the cycling. And when we master that art of balancing on the cycle, then we just, even after leaving two hands from the handle of the cycle, we so in a happy mood we start riding the cycle. So that is what happens. Initially it is always painful, but towards the end it is extreme joy, which can never ever get diminished, unlike the joy, the happiness, the pleasure that is received from the worldly enjoyments. That happiness is just momentary, and here Sri Krishna says this everlasting happiness, which initially is like a pain, but towards the end it is a nectar-like happiness. So that happiness, it comes only after the self-realization, after it is born out of purity of one's mind. ātma-buddhi-prasāda-jam. It comes out of self-realization. It comes one when attains to that extreme state of the highest purity of the mind. Without that, this Sattvika Sukha is not possible at all. And that Sattvika Sukha is the Sukha, the happiness of the highest order. That is the ultimate, for that matter. There is no happiness which is equivalent to the Sattvika happiness. It is the purest of the pure happiness, unblemished, unpolluted, undiluted. There is no contamination in this happiness. And that happiness never accompanies with unhappiness or pain or sorrow or grief, like the happiness that is drawn from enjoying the worldly pleasures. So this is Sri Krishna's teaching to us in this 37th shloka, that once you attain the purity of that mind, the highest level of purity, and answer to that question, who am I? The self-awareness, the self-realization. S capital, not self. Self-realization. When we attain to that state, then we get into that position of, initially we may take the bitter pill, but that bitter pill, having taken, will transform our worldly illness into the eternal divinity. That is what Sri Krishna says of this particular Sattvika happiness. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Sri Ramakrishna. Jai Thakur. Jai Ma. Jai Swamiji.